Viewers, this is a special broadcast on Times Now, and we are thrilled to have Aabhas Maldahiyar with us, a dedicated historian who's shaking up really how we view India's past. His latest book, Babar, The Quest for Hindustan, the second in the captivating series on the Mughals, dives deep into the original sources to challenge the narrative that paints the Mughals as some kind of saviors. With his work and through this book, Abhas exposes the ecosystem or tries to take on the ecosystem behind these historical distortions, revealing the unvarnished truth about their role. So let's welcome Abhas. Abhas, thank you for speaking to Times Now.
Thank you, Pranesh. It's indeed a pleasure to be here once again, and this time talking the part two of the Babar series.
That's right. I remember our conversation. You were in the studio then. We are doing this
Yes.
over a link line. I have gone through the book fleetingly, and it is a promising read. There are many things that I am now discovering that I did not know. So congratulations on bringing out the second of this series. I want to begin by asking you straight off the bat, Babur's conquest of India was not merely an expedition of dynastic revival. It was much more than that. In his own words, he called it a jihad. Would you break this down for our viewers?
For sure, Pranesh. And most of the people have painted the invasion by Timurids, whom we still wrongly have been calling as Mughals, as it was more for acquiring wealth. It was more for expanding the kingdom. It had nothing to do with the religion whatsoever. But when we open the accounts of the authority, when I say authority, it means the people themselves who are writing about that what exactly had happened and what they were doing. We get to know that the religious flavor was very much high. And in fact, Babur makes it very clear after the Battle of Chanderi. So, Battle of Chanderi is the fourth of the battle which he fights, fourth of the important battles. First is the Battle of Panipat, then the Battle of Bayana, then the Battle of Khanwa, and then the Battle of Chanderi. After the Battle of Chanderi, he makes it very clear through an inscription that I have destroyed Darul Harab. When he says that he has destroyed Darul Harab, it means that he is now stating Darul Islam has been established. And for the people who don't know that Darul Islam is basically an empire where there is a rule of Islam, and Darul Harab is a territory which is not ruled by Islam. So he makes it very clear that I have established an empire of the Islam. And as his conquest goes on, and in fact, if one starts to read the part two, the Babar, the Quest for Hindustan, which is a current book, in Bajar, he in fact killed the Muslims too, because he makes a claim that they were not a good Muslim. He was finding a problem that they are not practicing Islam as it is supposed to be, so even they are to be slaughtered. After the Battle of Khanwa, he takes the title of Ghazi, and he makes it very clear that his battles is with the Hindus. He is not shying away to state it equivocally. It's coming out very clear in the primary sources. And before the Battle of Khanwa, he had made it very clear that I am going to destroy the idols of the Hindu gods and goddesses, like how I am destroying the vessels of wine, that is alcohol. So he even goes on to compare our gods and goddesses idols with the vessels of the wine, which he destroys. So his idea was very clear. His acts were also very clear, along with the idea, and he did what any Ghazi or Jihadi would do.
Is that because you were talking about the fourth battle, is that the reason why the book begins with a, short, what do I say, a poetry that is dedicated to, it says to the bangles that burned like blades?
Yes. So we have got a very school of thoughts in the current time when people undermine the Rajput resistance many times. They will say that they later on collaborated with the Timurids slash Mughals. But the truth be told, that they were our saviors from the era of 8th century onwards, or rather 7th century. And in the Battle of Chanderi, Johar was committed. And I do make a point that it's not only the source which is fighting the battle, but it's also the bangles. When I say bangles, the bangles of the Rajputi woman, and it's a metaphor for them. And when they jumped into the Johar, and also it also is a dedication to the fact that they wielded the main of the steel. They won't give us some men who were just there to go and fight the battle for the dharma, religion, or whatsoever name we may take, and of course for the motherland for sure. And there's a very famous poem or the ballad which goes on to say that 12 वर्ष लोग कुकुर जिए 17-18 जिए सियार 16 जिए सियार 18 वर्ष से ज्यादा अगर राजपूत जीता है बच्चा जीता है तो उसके जीवन को है धिक्कार. So that's the kind of the children or the child who this Rajputi womb have given us. They certainly owe a lot of dedication from our side.
Now, in page 123, on page 123, you've written, Babar has stated clearly that the fragmented opposition led to victory of Ghazni and Ghori, and his desire to be like two of them speaks of his desires to be idol breaker. Now, there has been a lot of commentary on who is an idol breaker, what are idol breakers, did they exist at all? What are you trying to say here?
So this is again a fallacy of a concept that idols were not broken, or rather there was no religious connotation. Because when I say idol breaker, it's very clear that it's a quest against the polytheists, or the people who worship the gods to the idols, or what we call murti, or rather the vigrahas. That is a very precise term. And he wanted to destroy the idols, and he saw Ghori and Ghazni as his most idol. And we all know that the two Buddh Shikan, Ghazni and Ghori, they are the worst which our country ever faced. They went on a rampage to destroy the idols, they destroy the temples, and they like to be called at Buddh Shikan. And Akbar was not taking name of Khiljis. Babur was not taking name of Khilji, or he was not taking name of anybody else, but he chose to say that I want to be like Ghori and Ghazni. It means that he surely was of utmost desire that he be like one of them. He did not see anyone in middle. And so it really correlates very well when he says that I'm going to destroy the idols of the Hindus, just like how it destroyed the vessels of the alcohol. So it becomes very clear from his act. And also people would go on to say that he did not destroy much, which is quite okay, because he did not rule for that long. Maybe that had he ruled for longer period, we would have seen more of a destruction.
Okay. Now, in the book, you've written that this is the Babar who sets his gaze upon Hindustan, pursues it with relentless ferocity, and upon its conquest dons the mantle of a Mujahid, proudly assuming the title of Ghazi. Mujahid, Ghazi.
Yes. So Ghazi is somebody who becomes a victor in a battle against the infidels or the kafirs. It's a battle for the Islam. It's very clear. Now, people can paint him, like if I paraphrase the words of Pandit Nehru, our first prime minister. So he saw Babar as somebody, he's the most cultured man. And in fact, he's the most civilized man ever you can meet. But this is the man who was the first one to attempt to destroy the Bamiyan Buddhas, which finally was finished by the Taliban. So he started something which Taliban finished. So what are we even thinking of Babar as when we say that he is a civilized man? He cannot be one of those civilized men, at least in our perspective, for very sure. And when he took the title of Ghazi, it means that he surely was a victor in a battle against the Hindus. And he's making this difference very clear. Because when he goes in the battle of Panipat, he's not calling it Jihad. But when he goes for a battle against Rana Sangram Singh, or Rana Sangha, how we address him often, he calls it Jihad. He's very clear at it, that the battle against the infidel is absolute example of Jihad, and we must do it with it's a religious duty.
And the jihad continues against India till present day. Even as we speak, there is a country that's called Pakistan that is waging jihad against India. Now, many people, even the more educated ones, are in denial about it. What is this mindset from Babar to the people across the border who believe in the concept of a mujahid and this theory of jihad?
So, like I gave example initially about Darul Islam and Darul Harab. The word is divided into three parts. One is Darul Islam, second is Darul Harab, and third is Darul Sulah. So Darul Islam is the abode of Islam, or where the Islam is the rule. Darul Harab is where you raise the battle against the non-Islamic rule, and Darul Sulah is where you the Islam is in minority. So it's trying to come and to some agreement, agrees that we'll do this and that, and later on it will go on to become a Darul Harab, and then they will finally do a battle to make it Darul Islam. It comes from very theological concept, and in fact, when I am discussing about Nizamuddin Aulia in the book, I brought in Nizamuddin Aulia because Babur visited Nizamuddin Aulia's dargah when he conquered Delhi, and he's singing all the praise to Nizamuddin Aulia, etc. But even Nizamuddin Aulia waged the battle against the Hindus, and he condemned the Hindus to the hell. Now, even the most revered Sufi, and in the Delhi, everyone likes to visit Nizamuddin Aulia and whatnot. He condemned the Hindus. So the theology is very clear. What needs to be done? What is the path ahead? And I gave one example in context of Rakhi in the introduction. I introduced the episode of the fake story about Rani Karnavati sending a Rakhi and Humayun coming to save Rani Karnavati just because for the sake of Rakhi. But the truth be told, Humayun chose not to come. We don't know much about Rakhi, whether it was sent or not. But Humayun chose not to come, and he writes to his enemy Bahadur Shah. Bahadur Shah is the person who has invaded Rani Karnavati's territory, the Chittor. He is also enemy of Humayun. But Humayun writes to him that how great you are, that you are waging war against the infidel so well. And he chooses not to come because Rani Karnavati is an infidel. So there was a whole flip of a story altogether.
No, so why are you calling this a fake story?
Because we don't find any primary sources that a Rakhi was sent and Humayun rode all the way to help Rani Karnavati. It never happened. But these fiction stories appear in all the op-eds right before the Raksha Bandhan. You will see that this flowing that Rakhi has got a Mughal legacy. Had it not been Humayun, perhaps there wouldn't have been Rakhi and whatnot. But in fact, this episode gives you more gloomy fact. That gloomy fact or gloomy fact is this: that Humayun chose not to come, even though the aid was asked for, because Rani Karnavati is infidel, she is a kafir. So he made this kind of distinction, but we made this into a tale for glorifying the so-called Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb. But Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb was nothing but as long as you are looking to live in a dhimmi status, you pay jizya, you are agreeing to follow the dictates of the Islamic rule. It's a Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb. It was always a one-way street. And like in the introduction, I have also spoken about the marriage alliances, that a Muslim man could marry a Hindu girl, but otherwise, or the vice versa could not happen. And if it happens, it needs to be given a capital punishment. And it is happening in the rule of Jahangir, it is happening in the rule of Shah Jahan. So it continues to happen. So there's always this tussle that how to go against the infidels, how to subdue them, and how to ensure that the rule of Islam or the Islam spreads by hook or crook, by whatever way you want to try to do it as. And it continues to happen today also.
Now, you're talking about Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb. It is a very sensitive topic because, you know, a generation has been fed this thought that, look, there were apostles of Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb and we must worship them. They were the true secularists of the country. And there are books after books on them. Through this book, you have tried to refute that narrative of Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb. The romanticized source of Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb often overflows its historical vessel, drowning reason under tales of imagined harmony and fabricated tales of Hindu-Muslim marital alliances. Then you go on to say that the historian under Akbar, he had read the records with chilling clarity that under Akbar's rule, if a young woman was found unveiled in a public space, even a mere act of showing her face to the open air, she would be condemned to the degrading profession of prostitution. Now, not much has been written about this.
Yes. So this is just one of the many examples that even the most benevolent, whom we call as Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar, he had this ridiculous law that a woman who is unveiled, and in fact, if a woman lies to the husband or is alleged to have said a lie to the husband, she will have to face the punishment of becoming a prostitute. And this comes from a record, the official record itself. Now, this is just one of the many examples. I already spoke about that marriage alliances were always one-way street. If a Hindu man marries a Muslim woman, so he will face a capital punishment. And at the same time, the otherwise was seen as a noble act. If a Muslim man marries a
Right.
Hindu girl, it becomes a noble act. Now, Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb cannot be a one-way street. And more or less, if you are, there can be debate around whether it's right or wrong, whether interreligious marriage is correct or wrong. That's a different thing. But the rules were led in a way that it always seemed like a one-way street, and it was some way always against the Hindus. And even the examples which is thrown upon that Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar let Hinduism flourish in his household for his wife, etc. But that's not true, because when Akbar married the so-called Jodha, but Jodha is again a fictitious name. We don't know what exactly the name was. So she was led to worship her gods, etc. But she cannot become Malika in Hindustan until unless she has done the nikah. And nikah cannot happen in that era until unless she is converted to Islam. So it is just more than an assumption to say that she was for continuing the Hindu practice. And even when all the wives who, whether it's of Akbar or someone else, they all were when they died, they did not see the cremation, which is the Hindu ritual. They were rather buried, and so we see that even when they died, the Islamic rituals were followed. So it's very wrong to say that they were not converted or they remained to be
Yeah, in
Hindu.
fact, you've written refusal to convert consigned her to the status of a concubine, a
Yes,
living relic in the imperial harem. Her dignity traded for silk and silence. I would have added the word skin also. Traded for skin, silence, and silk.
yes, yes. So that is what Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb was about, and we don't see that there was any skin in the game for the Hindus that way. The only skin in the game was that they have to just be the servant of the Islamic law, and as long as you are agreeing to be the servant, you are toeing to the narrative. As even in the current times, as long as you are agreeing to the false narrative of Humayun being sent a Rakhi and he coming to aid his sister, so-called sister Rani Karnavati, you are in the game for the Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb, but the moment you call it out, maybe you will end up becoming a bigot and whatnot, I don't know.
Now, the book also talks about atrocities. Page 223, Khwafi Khan etches the grim tale in more detail than Babar. According to him, after the fourth surrender promised safe passage for the garrison, Babar's troops unleashed a torrent claiming 3,000 to 4,000 Hindus in retribution for perceived treachery during the evacuation. This bloodshed, you've written, predates the heart-wrenching saga of 1,000 women and children's self-sacrifice known as the Act of Johar.
Yes. So this happened, and this is something which people again don't talk about. Because Baba's legacy is always seen as somebody who was a patron of art, patron of culture, and his Charbagh gardens and etc. And some taste for good food and etc. But we always roll the carpet over these atrocities. What happened? And imagine that people are committing the Johar back then, not because of just they want to do it or just an act which people often want to relate with the act of sati, but it was not the case. They knew that what's going to come up because they had been seeing the Islamic invasion since long, since the era of 712, the Sindh invasion of the Sindh. They had been seeing it. The Rajputs had been facing the wrath since very beginning. They knew that what's going to come. So that's the reason why they choose to commit the Johar. And look at the audacity, or rather, I would say the bravery of these people. They are also fighting a battle. One battle was happening inside the palace too, while these brave Rajputs went on outside with the sword. They were there jumping into the fire, not just as a mere act of symbolism, but it was a battle too. They never wanted to be the slave or be enslaved at the hands of the Malechas. That is how they like to call them.
That is your word, that is your way of describing it. But Abbas, I'm sure that you know about the version peddled by the ecosystem. They see that this act of Johar was an act of cowardice. Women were forced to do this, etc., etc.
So it surely cannot be said about those women because they were the women who said that अगर 18 वर्ष से ज्यादा अगर राजपूत बच्चा जीता है तो उसके जीवन पे धिक्कार है. This is how they wielded those Rajput soldiers and the men. And in the time of now and the age of the wokeness, even a one cut can lead you to put handy plus bandages, etc. Imagine the kind of act which they were going. They called it cowardness. What world they are living in? Maybe that they should. I don't know how can they even feel the truth of it, because it's very tough to make someone feel who calls the act of Johar as an act of cowardliness, because it's just unimaginable.
No, which is why I want to ask you, what is this romance with the Mughal tyranny? Why has this version not come out, or why was there a sense of hesitation always to write what one Aabhas Maldahiyar can write? Why? What was the purpose of the historical distortion?
So this was very well answered by, I think, Dr. Shashi Tharoor long back, and either the debate with Harsh Madhusudan or it was with Vikram Sampath, where he said that this was deliberately done to hold this idea that unity must exist. And he admitted it. It was he admitted that perhaps the wrongs have been written, but it was for the sake of unity. But unity cannot be built on the edifice of the foundation of the lies. If you want to bring the unity, you have to say that something happened in the past. And let me just relate it to the current time. Still in the time of now, when we have to go to the court to fight to reclaim our temples. So what does it speaks of it? It means that we are surely fighting a battle with certain people. There is a battle. That's why we have to go to the court. Otherwise, the temples would have been given back to us. Had the people being very open to this idea of so-called Ganga, Jamuni, Tehzeeb, that okay, everything is fine. We understand that Aurangzeb was a bad guy, but we are not. But you go to the cover of Aurangzeb, you shower the flowers there, and then there are the people who try to defend the demolition of the mandir done by Aurangzeb. They defend the acts, heinous acts done by, say, Jahangir, etc. So aren't they continuing the legacy? So for the good of a nation, everyone needs to accept the truth as it is, accept it, and then move on. But perhaps, I don't know whether it's a theology.
No, you're right. Unless there is acknowledgement, there can never be reconciliation. हम कुछ भी बोल लें, लिख लें. Unless there is that sense of acknowledgement that this happened, this was wrong, let's correct it and move on. Now, let me ask you this about Babar. This tower of human heads, skull-strike minaret, what is the real story?
So, this goes back to the era of Taimur, or it's a very Central Asian trait, I would put it this way, that they like to make the towers of the minarets. It was the larger the minaret, the larger your victory resembled like. And it was a metaphorical symbol which they did. And Babur, in each and every campaign, whether it's after the Khanwa, or it's Bajor, or it's the Battle of Bayana, he goes on to make the towers of heads. Because the towers of heads also resemble that this is a tower of triumph to them. This was always a tower of triumph. And it always looked that, hey, I have killed so many infidels. This is the height of the power which I have been able to show against the Kafir, which is a rightful duty. The more I do it, the better the Ghazi I would become. So more or less, that is how it translated back to the Islamic invasion. Though it was Central Asian act, but later on it was more perceived as the larger the tower, more victorious you are over the infidel. And it again reflects through their own writing. If one dives deep into their own writing, it becomes very clear.
Every time the name Babar comes, or people are talking about Babar, people think of, or one is compelled to think of Babri Masjid. What is the truth about Babri Masjid?
Oh, this is very fascinating, Pranesh, because I come from a place called Hazaribagh, and Hazaribagh is a place where in every Ram Navami we will see that something has happened, because the procession of the the procession will pass through a certain area, some stone pelting will happen. So from my childhood memory, these things of Ram Navami and instances have always been each there. And I was 4 years old when the demolition of the Babri Masjid happened. And so from that period, it has always been in my head, and I was always fed up with the idea that it was Babur who demolished the Ram temple or the Ram Janamasthan Mandir. But when I began to look into the truth came as a revelation that the temple was not actually destroyed by Babur, but it was destroyed by Aurangzeb. And I was taken aback when I look at, because you grow up with a certain ideas, and I'm not somebody who has got any compassion or love or affection for Babur whatsoever. One can find it through my own writing. But the point I try to make here is, Pranesh, is whoever has done the atrocity or whoever has done something wrong to our ancestors or to our heritage, we must know exactly who that person is, because it's equally important to know that who the hero of a certain event is.
Right.
It's equally important to know who the villain of
villain
that
is.
particular. Yes. And there were forgery of inscriptions and many things which came up, which I have detailed in the book for three large chapters. That in fact the Muslim side was trying to make a claim that it belongs to Babur because
Yeah, your
or rather-
sentiment comes through. You've written on page 369. We wasted enough time trying to make Babur destroyer of a temple whose most likely culprit is the bigot Aurangzeb.
Yes, yes, and it was Aurangzeb, and in fact, this distortion was done by Buchanan. Buchanan, who was a traveler, and he was an expert of veterinary sciences, and he was a biologist, etc. But he had a lot of passion about surveying the regions, and he was after the death of Tipu Sultan, he was assigned to survey the southern India, and then he further went up in the north too. He writes very clearly that the local people say that the temple was destroyed by the Aurangzeb. But he says that I feel that Babur has done it. And there was a larger picture here, Panish. So I put it very bluntly that the Britishers were no friend to either the Hindus or the Muslims. And for them, the Mughals were the recent, the empire, the predecessors of them. So they wanted to paint the founder as worst they could. So they attempted their worst to make Babur as much villain as they could. Not that he was not the villain, he was a bigger villain for sure. But we did not paint the history in such a dull way that we even forget to see that who the actual villain is. And later on came a man called Tippenthaler. He was a Jesuit, and he makes a revelation that Aurangzeb destroyed it. He finds again talks to the
Now,
local people.
For people who are watching this right now, I mean, just imagine the scale of distortion. We've been fed this narrative that this is the Babri Masjid, the Ram Janmabhoomi, the place of birth of Lord Ram was destroyed by Babur, when it was actually Aurangzeb. It does not make the crime any lesser, but like Abbas was saying, there was forgery, and even inscriptions were altered, and history was written on one's feeling, not on facts, which is why I said in my introduction that Abhas has a penchant for scanning original source, Persian manuscript. He loves doing it, decoding it for us. Now, you were talking about Nehru and his, his version of Babar, how he saw Babar. And because we are talking about Ram Mandir, the people and, of Nehru's lineage, his family, I don't want to take names here, but those who have gone to graves of Babar, to the grave of Babar, refuse to go to Ram Mandir. And that sense of contempt comes through every time such a conversation comes up.
Yes, that's so true. And it's appalling, isn't it? Because the first prime minister of country talks so much tallly about a man who literally laid the foundation of our darkest ages. I see the Timurid era or the Mughal era as one of the darkest ages. And what we faced with the version of the Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb was a mentalist destruction of the temple. Temples were being destroyed left and right. Even in the era of Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar, the contemporary records tell that temples have been demolished, and the masjid or the maqbaras or the tombs have appeared over the temples. This is being said by Bernier. and he's a traveler who has come to see the rule of
So
the
Abbas,
Timurids.
let me put you in a spot. Would you blame Nehru for what he wrote? Or would you give him the wide berth and say that, look, because, so many people have been misled by wrong historical accounts, we can't fault Nehru. What was it?
So I do see that Nehru cannot be. See, we cannot blame Nehru so directly, but at the same time, the problem is that as people make a claim that hey, he's not a professional historian, like I will be told that Abhas is not a professional historian because he does not have a degree in history whatsoever. So, what was Pandit Nehru doing while he was writing the book called The Glimpses of the World, which it is considered the book on history? What was he doing when he was writing a book on discovery of India? So, I will give a due to him that he did a good job by trying to put his own perspective. I will see it with a pinch of salt, or rather bags of salt, that it was just a perspective which he was laying through. And his perspective was very much driven by the Marxist ideas. And he was very much communist by his own, or socialist, if I put it this way. And he always believed that religion is an obstacle. For him, religion always looks like an obstacle. His path was somewhere where religion has no place. And that's why we saw even the saga around the Somnath too, what exactly had happened.
Right.
So that tells you the perspective of Pandit Jawaharlal
But
Nehru. I
Abbas,
have no
even you were enamored by the communist Marxist thought once.
Yes. So that is what it does to you. But I was, I was lucky enough that it happened at a very young age, and I was able to recover very fast. And still, I'm not continuing to believe that communism can change the world. I know that it's a sickness, it's a disease, and it must go away. And I can tell it.
Would
as a
you call
victim.
it a ghar wapsi?
I will definitely call it. It's absolute ghar wapsi.
Okay. On that note, I have some rapid fire questions for you because, we can go on and on and on about the book. But are you ready for the rapid fire, Abbas?
Sure, let's go for it.
Let's go then. First question, conversion or conquest, what was the Mughal dream?
Conversion.
What built the empire faster, bloodshed or alliances?
Bloodshed.
Ganga, Jamuni, Tehzeeb, a syncretic culture or fake narrative?
Fake narrative.
Did Bharat's wealth bankroll Central Asia's growth versus the world glory?
Yes, it did. It did.
It did. Akbar the Great, gold standard or, not so great?
Not so great. It is just like conferring a Nobel, some prize upon yourself. Because Akbar has given the title of Akbar to himself, which many people don't know. It's said that some Rajput king gave him this title, but when he was being crowned, he gave this title to himself.
There you go. On a scale of 1 to 10, how atrocious were Babar's actions?
I would say 6, not 10, because he did not get a lot of time to do it. He had a very less time to play his games.
Oh, that's an interesting answer because I thought the moment I asked you this, you would say 11 or 12 out of 10.
No, because he did not get much time to play his game.
Oh, that's a reasonable answer. Okay. Do you see resemblance between Babar's jihad model towards kafirs and what happened in Pahalgam?
Absolutely, no doubt about it. It's one can relate page to page.
Can one man be both a butcher and a poet and an art lover?
Oh yes, Babar is for you. He was all of them.
If you had to describe Babar in just 3 words, what would you say?
Poet, Ghazi, and ambitious.
Now, be it Babar or Aurangzeb, is there any doubt that Ram Mandir fell to faith-driven destruction?
No doubt, it was fell to the faith-driven destruction.
And do you believe school history books should retrieve, or rewrite rather, Babar's Mughal chapter or chapters on Mughals after your research, the first book, now this one?
Yes, they must, because we need to start calling them Taimur so that the link goes back to Taimur, which is very important. And people sitting in Delhi should know that what Taimur did to the Delhi, that's where it should start from. So that's the start, and it should end with how our wealth was drained away to the other places. It's not that they did not loot us as the British did. They did the worst.
Okay, finally, let me ask you this. What would you tell people if they told you that you were a Sanghi historian or a Sarkari historian?
Had I been a Sanghi historian, I would have taken in account that Babar destroyed the Ram Mandir. Truth, however uncomfortable it would be, it does not matter to me. And even if I'm being told Sanghi, called out Sanghi, I have no problem with it because I see RSS as a great organization. I have a lot of respect for it. I will take it as a badge of honor too.
All right. Abbas, on that note, let's pause this conversation. Hope to catch up with you sometime soon. And congratulations once again on this second book in the series of exposing Babar.
Thank you so much, Pranesh.
Thank you.